Alright, hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to continue reading through the New Player's Handbook brought to us by Wizards of the Coast. Now last time we went through here, we did just the intro stuff. Now we're going to get into Chapter 2, which is creating a character. So this is where a good bit of the book differs a lot from the previous edition. Of course, you're going to want to talk with your DM about how they're wanting to run their game and what's kind of setting and things like that. And that's where you do your session 0, which is the most important session in Dungeons & Dragons. But where the major changes are really shining through here is in the actual steps you take to create your character. In the previous edition, one of the first things you would do is choose your race, which has now been changed to species, and been lobbed in to determine your origin. In this new edition, we begin with choosing a class. And the classes themselves have been rebalanced, reflavored, and changed a little bit. And I'll be going into those individually as we move along. But once you pick your class and you determine your origin, which is your species, your background, all that jazz, we go into our ability scores, alignment, and then we fill in the nitty-gritty. And they've taken the liberty of throwing in a nice little class overview here, and they have the primary abilities of each class listed, which is very nice. Now, what we have here is our new character sheet. As you can see, it has changed a great deal from 5th edition if you are familiar with it. I do, however, like how they've sort of gone through here and labeled everything for you. And frankly, I'm a big fan of having your class features and your species traits and feats kind of right here in the center. And then we move on to the second page, where you have your list of spells, prepared spells, cantrips, spell slots, modifiers, appearance, all that jazz. In the previous edition, this was a couple of different pages, so I like that they've sort of minimized what we've got going on here, because in the last 10 years of D&D, a lot of people have switched to one of the many apps that's around that allows you to have your spells and all that stuff at the flick of a wrist. They've also been creating spell cards, which is insanely helpful. Now, what they get into here is they talk about what a balanced party should be. And they have an example, which is made from the classic classes of D&D. And they have suggestions on what you can swap them out with. As you can see, Bard is one of the more versatile races, with being the easiest to swap out with Rogue, Wizard, or Cleric, which is nice to see as someone who favors the Bard class, personally. But then it goes through your level, XP, things like that. I'm a milestone man myself, so I don't really mess with that too much. And then it goes into your armor training and all that stuff. And I do like how they have listed out here in sort of a little blurb what the new backgrounds will give you ability scores in. But yes, they go through the basics on how to completely go through your character sheet, which is nice. Now, I like this note here that they've added to imagine your past and your present, because I've had a handful of players who aren't really sure how to develop the personality of their character, their traits, and how they would approach the world. So it asks you some thought-provoking questions here, like, who raised you? Are you an elf who was raised by humans? Are you a Goliath who was raised by gnomes? Who was your dearest childhood friend? Is it someone in the party? Did you have a pet? Things like that, which is very nice. Now, one of the more complicated things it delves into here are the languages. Now, in the previous editions, it was a staple that every character, no matter where they came from, knew Common. And an interesting thing here is that you can, if you want to, completely opt out of knowing Common. And another thing that I enjoy is they put in the Common Sign Language, which is nice to see. Excuse me, my pets are getting a little excited in the background. But yeah, it has your standard languages and they separate into your rare languages. And then it goes through how to determine your ability scores, and it goes through the standard array for each of your classes, and then it also goes into how to do random generation, which is what most people do. You roll your 4d6s and drop the lowest, add them together, that's your score. And then it goes into what point buy is, the cost of things, etc., etc. Now, it's at this point that it also delves into the backgrounds and species from older books, which is nice to see. Now, if you're using a background from an older book, you adjust your ability scores by increasing one score by 2 and a different one by 1, or increase 3 scores by 1. This is something we saw pop up in Mordenkainen's and Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, so it's nice to see that that stuck around. And then you just ignore the increase and use the ones given by your background. And if the background you choose doesn't provide a feat, you gain an origin feat of your choice, which is nice, because a lot of people were worried about feeling unbalanced if you have someone using one of these older features from previous editions. And one thing I do enjoy is they've given you a table here, where if you have high versus low in any one of these areas, and what that correlates to in your character's personality or their physicality, which is nice, you know. But yeah, and then it goes into the 9 alignments, which a lot of people ignore, and most people pick, let's see, where is it? Chaotic neutral, right here. Chaotic neutral creatures follow their whims, valuing their personal freedom above all else. So, you know, a lot of people, when they come to the table, they'll have a loose idea of how they want their character to be and interact with the world. But they don't really find their character's voice until they sit down at the table and begin interacting with the world and the people in it. And that's really where these come into play. So, for you new players out there, picking one of these doesn't lock you into acting a certain way, but it does kind of act as a reminder of, oh, I'm a lawful good paladin. I really shouldn't let the other party members just kill this random merchant dude because he doesn't want to give him a 50% discount. Or more likely, give him the stuff for free. Alright. And then they have a nice, artful representation of the alignments. And then they go into the personality traits that are suggested by alignment. And then we go into filling in the details, recording your class features, and then we get into your numbers, where we determine your saving throws, your hit points, passive perception, things like that. A big thing is that your passive perception is what your DM uses to determine what your character can see in the world around them without making a roll. So that's something you need to keep an eye on. And then we go into determining your hit points, initiative, your armor class, things like that. Not all classes determine their armor class based off their dexterity plus their armor. Some people have what is called an unarmored defense, where they get to add their dexterity or their constitution or their dexterity, things of that nature to determine what their armor will be. And your armor class, for those of you not in the know, that is what the DM has to roll in order to hit your character with a monster's attack, or a spell, or anything like that. Now this here is probably one of the harder things for players to do, and that is name your character. I have had some people pull out some classical Tolkien elven names. I've had people use real-life names like Eric or Bill. And I've also had people decide to name their characters like Lord Mittens the Destroyer, things like that. Tone, I feel, is an important thing to go over with your DM at session 0. And, play around with the other characters at the table to see if they're comfortable with you playing a goofy character in a serious campaign. Because it can be done. I actually have one of my friends, Brittany, she is playing a homebrew race right now that is essentially a cartoon character named Beanie. And this is in a grim, Dark Souls-esque setting, and it just works perfectly. And sometimes that all boils down to how players play their character. And that's something that'll come with practice. But moving right along, you go over your fine details as far as gender. You determine how your attacks work, your spell save DC. Your spell save DC always starts at 8, plus the ability modifier, plus your proficiency bonus. Same thing for your spell attack. Now, your attack bonus for weapons differs a bit depending on the type of weapon you're using, because weapons themselves have, this one pairs with strength, this one pairs with dex, this one lets you pick, things like that. And then we go into level advancement and how that increases your proficiency bonus. And for you people who like to use experience points, it tells you how much you need to hit in order to level up. And then it goes into what happens when you level up. Should you choose to, multi-classing is always an option. You always have to adjust your hit points and hit die. You can roll for that, or just take your fixed points. So for Barbarian, that's 7 plus your con, and they have a nice little table here for that. This is where you'll go over your character sheet if you have a physical copy, and adjust everything manually. Or if you prefer to use one of the many applications out there, you can do that too, and usually that'll do it for you. Now, one thing I like here is that they have separated things into tiers of play, and it begins delving into the bonus feats that they've implemented at level 20. So, the tiers of play separates your characters by levels. So levels 1 through 4, you're like a new fledgling apprentice adventurer, and then 5 through 10, you're an actual adventurer. You have access to the iconic spells of Fireball and things like that. Tier 3, you are special among adventurers, and then you're a cut above the rest. And then at Tier 4, you're basically demigods. So, go turn into a goldfish and throw yourself off a cliff, you'll be fine. And then, once you hit that pinnacle at level 20, this was something that didn't really get touched on in 5th edition, but was well known in prior ones. They have reinstated things called epic boons, which are a way to take your character at level 20 and let them push past what's normally available. And they have all that detailed in the feats section, but I'm glad that they officially threw it into the book, because previously there was 1, maybe 2 feats in 5e that would let you do that, or it would be up to the DM. But they have done something interesting here. They've adjusted starting equipment per level. So if you're starting at a level above 1, they have the suggested things here. So, for levels 2 through 4, you've got your normal starting equipment plus 1 common magic item. And then 5 through 10, you get 500 gold, plus an extra d10 times 25, and your starting equipment and a common, uncommon item, and so on and so forth. Which I find interesting because I've had DMs in the past say, we're going to go ahead and start the campaign at level 3 or level 5, sometimes level 10, and say, oh yeah, and just have a magic item at rare level or lower. And it's nice to have like an official thing here for that. Because, you know, if you are in fact an adventurer of renown and have all this stuff going on, you would have gear of that level at this point. Now, in this section here, it really goes over multi-classing, proficiencies, prerequisites, and all that stuff, and tells you how your spellcasting really works at certain levels and how your proficiency bonuses and things go into that. And over here, as you can see, they have the table that tells you how your spell slots increase per level. Now, this does sort of change depending on what class you take, as warlocks have a very different take on the arcane arts within the realm of Dungeons & Dragons. And we'll be going into that when we go over Warlock. So, behold the trinkets table. This is useful for players and DMs. DMs, you can use this to determine random loot that's just sort of laying around if you need to. For players, this can help you get inspiration for like a trinket from your past that your character would have. And in Chapter 3, we will be officially diving into the classes proper, starting with Barbarian. They are our punchy, angry boys. They are known for rage and strength primarily, but with the new addition, we got a new class that is much more support-based. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. I apologize for my cats, but, you know, such is life. But I'll see you guys at the next one, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you again for tuning in, and feel free to tell your friends about the channel, share, do all that stuff. I'm still getting new to Twitch, so do whatever Twitch does to get more followers. Have a great day.